My fellow citizens, when a man hears himself somewhat misrepresented, it provokes him at least. I find it so with myself, but when misrepresentation becomes very gross and palpable, it is more apt to amuse him. The first thing I see fit to notice is the fact that Judge Douglas alleges, after running through the history of the old Democratic and the old Whig parties, that Judge Trumbull and myself made an arrangement in 1854 by which I was to have the place of General Shields in the United States Senate, and Judge Trumbull was to have the place of Judge Douglas. Now, all I have to say upon that subject is that I think no man, not even Judge Douglas, can prove it because it is not true. I have no doubts he is conscientious in saying it. As to those resolutions that he took such a length of time to read as being the platform of the Republican Party in 1854, I say I never had anything to do with them. And I think Trumbull never had. Judge Douglas cannot show that either of us ever did have anything to do with them. I believe this is true about those resolutions. There was a call for a convention to form a Republican Party at Springfield, and I think that my friend, Mr. Lovejoy, who was here upon this stand, had a hand in it. I think this is true, and I think that if he will remember accurately, he will be able to recollect that he tried to get me into it, and I would not go in. I believe it is also true that I went away from Springfield when the convention was in session to attend court in Tazewell County. It is true they did place my name, though without authority, upon the committee, and afterward wrote me to attend the meeting of the committee, but I refused to do so, and I never had anything to do with that organization. That is the plain truth about the whole matter. Now, about this story that Judge Douglas tells of Trumbull bargaining to sell out the old Democratic Party and Lincoln agreeing to sell out the old Whig Party. I have the means of knowing about that. Judge Douglas cannot have. And I know there is no substance to it whatever. Yet I have no doubt he is conscientious about it. I know that after Mr. Lovejoy got into the legislature that winter, he complained of me that I had told all the old Whigs of his district that the old Whig Party was good enough for them, and some of them voted against him because I told them so. Now I have no means of totally disproving such charges as this which a judge makes. A man cannot prove a negative, but he has a right to claim when a man makes an affirmative charge. He must offer some proof to show the truth of what he says. I certainly cannot introduce testimony to show the negative about things, but I have the right to claim that if a man says he knows a thing, then he must show how he knows it. I have always a right to claim this, and it is not satisfactory to me that he may be conscientious on the subject matter. Now, gentlemen, I hate to waste my time on such things, but in regard to that general abolition tilt that Judge Douglas makes when he says that I was engaged at the time in selling out and abolitionizing the old Whig Party, I hope you will permit me to read a part of that printed speech that I made then at Peoria, which will show altogether a different view on the position I took in that contest of 1854. This is the repeal of the Missouri Compromise. The foregoing history may not precisely accurate in every particular, but I am sure it is sufficiently so far all the uses I shall attempt to make of it, and in it we have before us the chief materials enabling us to correctly judge whether the repeal of the Missouri Compromise is right or wrong. I think and shall try to show that it is wrong, and in its direct effect letting slavery into Kansas and Nebraska wrong in its prospective principles, allowing it to spread to every other part of the wide world where men can be formed inclined to take it. This declared indifference, but as I must think covert real zeal for the spread of slavery, I cannot but hate. I hate it because of the monstrous injustice of slavery itself. I hate it because it deprives with plausibility to taunt us as hypocrite causes, the real friends of freedom, to doubt our sincerity, and especially because it forces so many real good men amongst ourselves into an open war with the very fundamental principles of civil liberty, criticizing the Declaration of Independence and insisting that there is no right principle of action but self-interest. Before proceeding, let me say, I think I have no prejudice against the Southern people. They are just what we would be in their situation. If slavery did not exist among them, they would not introduce it. If it did now exist among us, we should not instantaneously give it up. But this, I believe, the masses of North and South. Doubtless there are individuals on both sides who would not hold slaves under any circumstances, and others who would gladly introduce slavery anew. If it were out of existence, we know that some Southerners men do free their slaves, go north and become up-top abolitionists, while some Northerners go south and become most cruel slave masters. But all this, to my judgment, furnishes no more excuses for permitting slavery to go on into our free territory than it would be for reviving the African slave trade by law. the law which forbids the bringing of African slaves from Africa and which has so long forbidden the taking of them to Nebraska, can hardly be distinguished on any moral principle, and repeal the former could quite as plausible excuse as that of the latter.